Today we're going to view Dangerous Covenants, the hired gun career sourcebook for Star Wars RPG, Edge of the Empire. As always, let's start with the player options. We have a bunch of crap I don't care about. Species, here we go. So, we have three species, the Aqualish, Klatooinian, and the Weequay. The Aqualish, they're one of those species that have like three subspecies, so you have some base stats, and then there are slight variations, which to be honest I don't find that interesting. Pick one rank and two different skills, and then remove setback die from certain checks in certain situations. None of these bonuses I find particularly interesting. Overall, it's not my favorite species, but I guess the whole coercion bounty hunter kind of a thing might be interesting to some people. Another one's big on perception and seeing things. Another one is pretty resilient and good at dealing with cold and wet climates. None of them really grab me. I'm surprised we didn't have a special ability that says he doesn't like you either, or something, you know, because from the movie reference. I don't know, they're kind of dumb. Klatooinian, they're awesome. I love the Klatooinian. They kind of, in a way, they kind of remind me of like humans, but more combat focused. So they're these dog people. Thousands of years ago, I guess they pledged themselves to the Hutts as like a slave race or servant race or something, and they've just been trained generation after generation to be their warriors, their shock troops, and they're pretty good at combat. They're kind of like human in that they get a rank in a skill that's not a career skill, and then they also get a free rank in one of three different skills that are combat skills, and so it is possible to double up on a combat skill, assuming you pick the right ones, and have a really good combat dice pool in a character that probably shouldn't. So yeah, Scholar is actually probably my favorite because they have that one talent where just like every turn you can, with a little bit of cost, make yourself better at whatever check you want. So yeah, they could be really good at shooting people in the face and also doing the Scholar stuff. Weequay are the lamest, probably the lamest species I've ever seen in my entire tenure talking about this game. So they're kind of brawny, they're stupid, they physically gifted, not in any interesting way. And then their big special thing that really makes them stand out, your last chance to stand out and be worthwhile playing, they can communicate via pheromones with other Weequay. How often is that even going to come up? Unless someone else is playing a Weequay, then you can do a thing back and forth and keep the group out of the loop or something. Or do a spy thing where you're talking to each other and the stormtroopers don't know. Or it's mostly stupid. Most likely, if anything, the GM will go out of their way to make content, put other Weequays in there that you can communicate secretly to do stuff with. I don't know, they're lame. I don't like the Weequay. Least favorite species in the entire game. 3 specialization talent trees. Next, what we're talking about, and I do have a video on each of these. The heavy, they carry a big gun. They get a lot of help carrying big guns, so you don't have to get a special arm backpack power thing to carry the giant things, or you don't have to worry about your brawn rating to carry the giant things and have the accuracy penalty. So you can have a weapon so big it's meant to be mounted on a tripod, but you just carry it. Demolitionist, I absolutely love. They're like the Saboteur from the Age of Rebellion core rulebook engineer career, but they are better. They have all of the exploding stuff and also keep your friends and yourself safe from the explosions, so you can do more explosions more often. Plus more, it's great. I love the Demolitionist. Enforcer, they're an intimidation-focused talker, and also they can smack people around a little bit. I kind of like the idea of not even focusing on combat, though, when you're all bark, no bite. That's fun. Anyway, all in all, 3 pretty good trees. The hired gun has some really good stuff. And if you're a hired gun, you are going to love the signature abilities. Last one standing, it's all about just removing people from the battlefield, which is why it's kind of boring mechanically. You do a check, and then if you succeed, you just move X amount of people from the battlefield. I guess from a roleplay perspective, it's interesting because it gives you excuse to, okay, here are all the people that you remove from battle. Spend 10 minutes explaining how you murder all of them. That's kind of fun, right? That could be fun. And most of the upgrades are about making that check easier, which works pretty well in this case because the skill that it is, it's not something that you're going to put a lot of effort into, typically most people anyway, so it's nice to have a little extra help. Also, you can remove even more enemies, and so you're just even more offensive in a great way. However, the one I really like, more so because it's more interesting mechanically, it's just a big defensive buff to you. You're just way harder to take down for X amount of time. And in addition to the normal signature ability stuff, you know, make it cheaper or easier to pull off, last longer, blah, 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 you can increase your defenses in a couple different ways. Also, you get to do a whole new cool thing where you intercept an attack that might hit an ally. So you're really good at taking damage, and also you can take that directly for an ally with some limitations. So that's a really cool one. Do you want more offense? Do you want more defense? We got you covered. Some really great signature abilities. Weapons. We have 16 new range weapons, 6 each of range light and gunnery. I especially like the really cheap slug throwers. We have a pistol and a rifle, which has auto-fire, by the way. So if you want a cheap auto-fire rifle right out of the gate, that's kind of neat. But it's mostly just big, giant guns that look really cool. We also have explosives that work differently than normal explosives because the blast radius is different than the regular blast quality of a weapon. So it's not just like a grenade, you put it at someone's feet, and then anyone in gauge range will get damaged as well if you roll well enough. We have blast radius for some of these explosives for like short range, medium range, long range in some cases. It's ridiculous. It has a base damage and then it scales up additional damage with more charges. So you take charges of these explosions and you can put them together and get more and more damage, and some of them are really, really ridiculous. You can do some awesome, massive, obscene things with the explosives, which is great. We also have some decent melee weapons, 3 each of brawl and melee. So we got your marauders covered. Some really cool armor. Most of it is pretty expensive, like power armor kind of stuff. But we also have some pretty good cheap starting armor for some of the specializations. So like one of them, the flak jacket, gives you extra soak against explosions. So if you're doing the whole I stand in a crowd and just detonate a grenade in my hand and hit people in the radius, but the talent that helps you avoid that, it doesn't work because you didn't roll good enough or whatever the cost is, you're caught in your own explosion. You flew too close to the sun, but at least you have your flak jacket to protect you a little bit. And for your more intimidation focus, like your enforcer, we have Beast Hide Warrior's Armor, which gives you a little help with your intimidation checks, which is kind of neat. And they're both pretty cheap and decent armor. I like the weapon attachments. There's some good bread and butter stuff you'd want weapons to have. A laser sight, pistol grip. There's a gene lock, so only you with your DNA can use it. But really, the one I love the most is a wrist mount. So a little blaster pistol can be mounted to your wrist. Keep your hands free, or you have a secret little it flips out kind of a situation going on. Although it's not really hidden or anything. Maybe the GM might say it's harder to detect, but it's not statted for that. There's also a similar thing with a hands-free weapon system for your armor, if that's more the route you want to take. And I think it deals with more impressive. Yeah, you can have range heavy weapon like a predator shoulder gun kind of situation going on. There's some armor attachments. There is a really cool paramilitary vehicle quick conversion template. So your paramilitary group, you know, mercenary for hire, or even like I guess rebel groups, any group that sort of has to take whatever gear they can get, perhaps converting civilian vehicles, you can sort of quick and easy. Well, it's really more of a quick and easy tool for the GM to just switch the stat blocks of an existing vehicle, and it's more militarized. So like you could take a cloud car and it's going to have less handling and a smaller hull trauma threshold, but it's going to have more armor and a blaster on top of it. So that's kind of neat. And it does that with like medium transport, shuttle, yacht, bulk transport, speeder bike, walker, land speeder, air speeder, etc. And finally, the third big chapter, action and adventure, which is all about integrating hired gun characters, creating content for them. We do have a little bit of what it's like if you're a hired gun mercenary kind of character working for an organization, or if you're working independently or for criminals. We have a couple encounter ideas as well as adventure ideas and campaign ideas. Let's start with the encounter ideas, because this is actually kind of unique. I don't think I've seen something like this before. So they have one of these for every specialization, all 6 specializations for the hired gun career: demolitionist, enforcer, marauder, etc. And basically they'll have a setup for a type of encounter that those types of characters might be involved in. So like for the marauder, you're in a dark, seedy, rickety gambling hall filled with unsavory characters, and then there's a list of various cover and objects that might be in the area. And the basic idea is that someone in your party made a Wookiee mad, and you get into a big brawl and you start duking it out. And in fact, we have adversaries for each of these. One angry Wookiee gladiator, rival with the knockdown talent, and his Gamorrean thug minion friends. And they talk about how at a certain point, because there's always a surprise with one of these, when either combatant slams the other to the floor, they both drop into the basement, damaging the auto chef system, which begins spewing liquid and food everywhere. They don't actually have like stats like what does that mean? Is it difficult terrain, or does it add setback die, or automatic threats or whatever to checks if they're covered in the goo, or like they don't do anything like that, but it gives you some ideas. So we have 6 pretty simple encounter outlines to work with, to make content with. We also have 2 hired gun missions and 2 hired gun campaigns. Basically, the bare bones beats plot points that the players will come across, the setup, what it's about. There's sometimes a little twist or something. Just gives you an idea for an adventure, I guess a campaign, but like these campaigns could easily be made much shorter. The adventures could be made much longer. Whatever suits you and your group best. There's also some advice on running some combat encounters. It's very little, I'll be honest. Like, there's a section on ambushes here, right? As an example, the ambushes. And it basically says ambushes are a thing that exists, and you could use them. There's a lot of stuff like that. Oh, there's also a pricing chart somewhere in here. I forgot. I did see it, though. But there's a pricing chart that most of the Edge career source books have, where it's like, if you're a bodyguard, or you're a demolitionist, or this, you might have these types of jobs that you do, and it typically pays this amount of money range, and here's a description of the job, and that's kind of neat. It's a neat little tool. Anyway, so in summation, let's see. We got a whole bunch of great weapons, great specializations, great signature abilities. The species are fine. Everything else is really great. Hired gun people, absolutely buy it. And GMs, if you want a book to supplement your Edge of the Empire campaign that gives you a lot of weapons and armor and tools, like there's even healing stuff in here that's so weird. A lot of great stuff here. It's a pretty good Edge of the Empire supplement in general. Maybe not quite as much as the Technician book or Smuggler book, but still, most GMs are really going to like this at their table. That's it for today. Hey, you! Shirt! Buy it.